Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Elkin Publishing Group first international webinar. As you know, we operate in Italy, Spain, Portugal, Latin America, USA, and as you might have heard about, we have just launched a news website dedicated to the legal market for Switzerland. This is why today we will be discussing about the coronavirus pandemic with people from almost every jurisdiction we operate in. Indeed, from quarantines and closed schools to financial market collapse and travel bans, this pandemic is disrupting our usual habits all around the globe. This emergency has lots of legal implication, both locally and international, and it's a new ground for all of us because we don't have a president. So it's a real challenge for all of us. That's why in this webinar, we'll try to give to the world legal community the opportunity to understand how the biggest law firms in the world are dealing with this crisis in terms of the issue that they're addressing to clients and also in terms of their internal experiences as organizations. Let me first thank our online audience for taking part to this webinar. And I would like to remind to the audience that we are having a Q&A session at the end of the discussion. And let me also immediately introduce our speakers, coming, as I said at the beginning, from different jurisdictions. We have from Ecuador, Juan Felipe Bustamante, partner at Bustamante & Bustamante. Virginia Servieri, senior partner at Servieri Monsuarez from Uruguay. From Italy, we have Gregorio Consoli, partner at Chiomenti. From Brazil, we have Giuliano Colombo, partner at Pinheiro Neito. From Venezuela, Gustavo Esteban, founder partner LEC Abogados. Javier Gomez, partner at Perez Yorca from Spain. Marcos Ibargüen, partner at Quil Cuatro Abogados from Guatemala. From Chile, Juan Francisco McKenna, partner at Carey. Tiago Marreiros Moreira, partner at Vieira de Almeida from Portugal. Carlo Viacava, partner at Estudio Ola e Cera from Peru. Clarice von Wunschem, partner at Altenburger from Switzerland. And thank you for joining. And last but not least, since he will introduce the whole discussion with his experience and opinions, we have Giulio Fazio, General Counsel from Enel. As you know, it is an international company operating in most of the jurisdictions that we have in this panel today. So, Mr. Fazio, in moment of crisis like this, what is the role of the General Counsel and what particular measures have you taken at Enel?
So, welcome everybody. First of all, welcome to all the partners of the law firm around the world we have here. I know we work with many of you, so thank you also for the contribution you are giving around the world in this moment. First of all, let's say that what we are affording is something really different from whatever has happened in the past. And as you may imagine, the companies usually try to set rules for risky situations and to prevent any kind of risk with procedures. The risk we are affording today, that is a pandemic risk, is something totally different under also the procedural point of view from whatever we can imagine in the past. In fact, in usual situation, you can, when you think to something very bad that can happen, you imagine wars, you imagine earthquakes, you imagine something that may destroy a part of your, in our case, power plants, or reduce your capability to act in a country. When you talk about a pandemic, you are in a situation where you risk to lose in a single moment and where you don't expect these all your people. And try to imagine when this may happen in a business where you are essential for many of the activities all of us perform during our life. So imagine, in the case of Enel, having a reduction of no electricity in some country because you don't have people that can go to restore a system that can control a control room, or you have to, in order to prevent the risk of contagion, you have to send people home, but you don't have anybody capable to work in a place. So a situation like this, I think, is really strange. And our case in Enel, I think we were maybe a case first in Italy. We had to learn the lesson very soon, and we were also lucky, as our recovery system were working. We had to adapt them to the real situation, and the situation where you don't have, at a certain point, certainty on people that can work in every place. And then you have to assure the business continuity, but not just for yourself and not just for economics, but in order to permit the country to afford what is happening. Having passed this in Italy, we had the chance also to transmit our new procedures all around the world. We had the chance to close our departments around in the world before then all the countries were entering in lockdown. So having the chance to understand how the phenomenon was going, I think it was really a chance in order to transmit correct procedures all around the world. Just imagine, at the beginning, when this happened in China, the first problem we were trying to afford, that is maybe like most companies around the world are doing or were doing, was to understand if there were problems for continuity of our activities around the world. For instance, we will be able to build the power plants we are building, as some components from China will have a delay. Or is force majeure case relevant as we have to consider as a force majeure case something like this or not? And then you have to make evaluation also with epidemiologists on how long time will it take, when it will expire. Then and this is something maybe typical for a human being, that you always consider, you always reduce the impact of what is happening. You never realize how hard can be the problem until you afford it in truth. Then at the beginning, when it happened in Italy, everybody was thinking, okay, this is like an epidemic, a normal epidemic, this is not a pandemic. Therefore, we are not in a pandemic risk. But in that case, in those cases, and it's something that for sure in other countries you are experiencing, to think immediately that everything will go in the worst way, and the experience other countries are doing will be the experience you will soon do, can help you in order to set the correct procedures that help you in order to stop or at least reduce the problem. That means reduce contagion and continue your business, even if you have to stop for some time, and then recover when it finishes. And I think this is something very important to consider, that this pandemic is something that has started, but that will have an end. For sure, will have an end different from what we may hope. So maybe there won't be a day where we will start doing everything we were doing before, but at the same time we'll have an end. And when it will end, how it will happen, and then how we can start again producing and start again working in a different way. So consider that the time, under the business point of view, the time for a company like ours is not the time we are living today. We need to stay in the future. And when I mean the future, I mean in 1 month from now, 2 weeks or 1 month from now. I understand where we will be then and how we will work then in order to get the needed continuity. I think this is very important. I guess how our colleagues and partners from the various law firms are imagining this future, we have an idea. Of course, we think also something to consider is also the timetable we will have for the end of this pandemic. The timetable we will have until something, the scientists will find something to stop the problem, but also when it will be possible to move and to produce again. But when it will happen country by country. Just imagine in this moment, for instance, you have in Europe, Italy is closed, but you have China open. Italy is closed, France is closed, almost closed. Spain is closed, Great Britain is closing, but Germany is open. But soon you will have Germany closing, and therefore you will have a moment where Italy will open, but maybe Germany will open 1 month after. And so you have also to understand how your production, what you will do, will impact with closed markets in all the kind of markets we will have. Under the legal point of view, I think this is very important as we are dealing with new regulations, emergency regulations. We have to afford them in a sustainable way. We all may experience that emergency regulations are not precise enough. So you have to discuss always with institutions in order to modify them and to keep them as logical as is possible. You have also to discuss them even if in some moment you can be tempted to claim against a regulation because this is nonsense or it is done with panic and not with logic, but it's a moment where you are forced to discuss, because this is not the moment of claiming, this is the moment of trying to discuss with everybody, and it will make everything easier in order to wake up all together from what is happening and avoiding to bring this in trail and in claims in the future, but bring this to business. So we have to make an effort in this moment not to take note of the claims and responsibilities that we can claim tomorrow, but of finding a way to work all together as soon as possible to restore business capabilities around the world. And I think lawyers around the world can help a lot in this, above all if we act in a standardized way in the emergency and we quickly understand what is happening and how to recover this. For instance, in force majeure and in all the kind of clauses of the existing contracts and in the new business, we will need to do from tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fazio. It was very interesting. You raised some interesting points. I think we will have time to further discuss them also with managing partners from various jurisdictions. But before starting the roundtable, I would like to kindly ask to the speakers to respect the times that I'll be giving you, because we are very happy to have all of you as speakers, but at the same time, we would like to have an equal space for everybody and to give to our audience also the best information. Since we are from various countries, as I said also at the beginning, and since the outbreak of this pandemic, as also Giulio Fazio underlined, is witnessing different stages at the moment, as first question, I'll ask you to briefly describe the main measures taken by your governments in your respective country, and what are the major legal implications that you are experiencing connected to different fields, and in which particular field you are receiving a growth of demand from clients. Please try to remain in a 2-minute answer. Let's start with Europe, which is the epicenter of the pandemic at the moment, and in particular with Italy. Mr. Gregorio Consoli.
Is it working? Yes. We are all experiencing troubles. We have all the kids that are studying at the same time. So the line, it is what it is. I apologize for that. Thank you, Julia. Really a number of interesting points. And it's good to see you and to see that all of you are safe at this moment. It's sad to say, but interesting time for lawyers, meaning that there are a number of difficulties, practical difficulties, technical difficulties. At the same time, we are looking at this moment as people with a privilege. We have the privilege to stay at home. And when I say it is, because we know, at least in Italy, that it is a privilege. We have a privilege to be able to continue to work. As Julia was saying before, this is not the same for any kind of work at this moment. There are people that need just to stay without doing anything or what can do usually. And this is a real privilege, and we are looking at this in this way. We are looking to different issues that are just out of the pandemic, as you mentioned. So there are issues that are coming out over the time. So impact of the pandemic on contracts, for instance, Julia was mentioning force majeure, something that affects different phase. But then also to live with the usual stuff. I mean, we just shareholders meeting of listed company of other companies with a number of different shareholders, and with the practical issue. At the same time, we need to live with the emergency legislation enacted in the initial months of the crisis and will be updated and implemented. And I think this is really a difficult exercise, both for our legislator and for us as lawyers. The difficulty is that everyone is trying to figuring what are the immediate needs in a situation where a large part of the country is blocked. So immediately you look at liquidity, you need at how to provide enterprises and company with liquidity. You try to understand what you can do with your workforce, so with labor, with any kind of instrument that you can have to maintain occupational rate in these moments. You need also to deal with courts. It's difficult to if in a lockdown situation to continue to go down with usual proceedings. So there are really a number of different pieces of legislation that need to be temporarily adapted to the new situation. At the same time, we need to learn from our experience. What is different from the past is that usually you have the time to have the law, to look at the effect of the law, and then to adapt. Now, this kind of circle is really fast because you are trying to do something 1 week, then you suddenly discover that is not working in a few days and you are trying to change. Sometimes you're changing in a good direction, sometimes they're not, but it is what it is. And I think in this moment, as lawyers, as people that study law, what we can try to do is to try to give just good suggestion in the general interest of the country rather than looking only at the particular interest of your clients or your company, depending you are an external lawyer or internal lawyer. And I think that is a key element. And this is why we have, in a way, a good point of view, meaning that we are exactly in the middle between the state measures and what the enterprises need. So we are able to try to understand what the state is trying to do and try to put that information into the enterprise, but we need also to be able to give the other feedback, to go in the other direction, try to understand what is not working and try to tell to the state, this is what is not working and you need to adapt. So I think to close and to stay with the 2 minutes, I think we are looking at emergency, and I think I would also be interested to understand in the other country how you are dealing with the 4 things that I mentioned before: justice, labor, tax provision, and tax let's say advantages or supports, and the liquidity and other measures for the enterprise. I mean, yes, maybe we are in a way a step forward in terms of how the pandemic is advanced, but as we said, is matter of weeks. So sometimes you can have some good ideas in certain countries that have come before, and it's good to try to exploit them. So I think the scope of this initiative is also try to understand what is happening in other countries. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Mr. Consoli. Let's move now to Spain. Mr. Gomez.
Hello, everybody. Well, I'm totally agree with what Gregorio was saying. I think Spain is going just 1 week after Italy, so the measures that are being taken here in Spain are quite similar to those taken in Italy. The state of emergency was declared on the 14th of March, and well, that was the main change in the Spanish law, because it included a lot of measures, especially regarding to ensure and guarantee the supply of goods or basic services, national health system, transport and custom, containment measures, and of course measures limiting personal freedoms. I mean, this was like something that most of us hadn't lived before, and everybody was sent home. This situation has been increased since yesterday, Monday, because now only the essential services, the workers for essential services can go to work. Before Monday, everybody could go to work. Always respecting, the going alone in the car, or respecting the 1 meter distance, etc. Those measures that you all know. And after that declaration of the state of emergency, there was some laws that were enacted, trying to support employees, support families, vulnerable groups, establishing additional employment and economic measures, aiming to make temporary adjustment mechanisms more flexible to avoid redundancies. For example, we call it here ERTES, Expedientes de Regulación Temporal, employers temporary. And they are also providing some liquidity guarantees to employees, where the government has created a guarantee of up to 100 billion euros to back liquidity needs for companies. And as a last point, and I think this is very important, especially for me, because I'm an M&A and corporate partner. They have included some restrictions to foreign investments here in Spain. And this has been crazy because the law is very limited, the law that they have enacted. We lawyers have a lot of doubts. We are trying to be in constant contact with the minister to try to clarify those doubts. And they have limited investments in strategic sectors in Spain of more than 10% by foreign investors, meaning investors outside the European Union. I think that's for the M&A corporate world, that's the most relevant change we have seen. And I think that could be a good summary of what we have here in Spain as of now.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to Portugal, Mr. Marreiros Moreira.
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say that here at VEA, besides representing Portugal, we are also present at 13 jurisdictions, most of them in Africa. And so I will try to give you both an idea of Portugal and of what is happening also in the African continent that we are covering. So in respect of Portugal, as has been said regarding Italy and Spain, Portugal is also with the state of emergency legislation that will be probably prorogated in the next 2 days. So it's very, I would say, very probable that we will have at least, another period of 15 days with this state of emergency. What we've been seeing is, a very fast reaction from the Portuguese government, taking a little bit, I would say, the experience of both Italy and Spain to try to speed up some of the processes, both on the health, I would say, in the health system, as well as in the support of the economy. And so what we've been seeing is several packages of legislation that have been enacted in the last weeks, many of them dealing, of course, with labor issues, such as, layoffs are starting to occur in Portugal, and there is now a specific legislation for that. Also, treasury and liquidity is a big concern for everyone, and so the Portuguese government has also enacted several rules that provide a government guarantee in respect of financing, also has deferred the payment of taxes and social security for certain situations and certain types of business. And of course, also we had a suspension of most of the judicial and tax deadlines that were in place. And so what we've been seeing is a very fast adaptation of all the business, including ourselves. Here at the fund, we have about 95% of people are working from home, and we only have very, very minimum services for emergencies at our premises. And what we see is also that clients, we are having a very close relationship with our main clients. We are assisting at this moment the boards of our main clients, both in, I would say, dealing with the crisis as well as in the preparation of the future. So we are working in both platforms at the same time. First, deal with the emergencies and the very difficult issues that companies have on the table, but also trying to build a strategy for the future that we still don't know exactly how it will be, but we are trying to create scenarios together with our clients to deal also with the possible future situations we will have. As I was mentioning, in Africa, we are covering several countries, and we see that Africa is also doing a very fast adaptation, at least from a legislative point of view. So the governments have been also decreting emergency, I would say, in most of the countries, even before having cases or when they have the first cases. Of course, it's a big concern what will happen in many of these countries, because the health system is not as the one we have, in Europe at least. Also from the work perspective, we see that there are several issues on the table, like from real estate. We are renegotiating contracts. We are dealing with the contracts that are in place. We have, of course, force majeure clauses in many contracts that are being analyzed. Also, insurance issues. Data privacy is also a big issue. Because as we know, most of us are having also to provide additional information for medical purposes, and so this is also, for example, in the health sector, is creating a lot of doubts in respect of some issues that are being discussed with the patients. So we see that, in fact, at this moment, there are several new problems coming into the market. So I think that what we feel is that from a working perspective, we are we are trying to use some of the resources that probably will not be as busy as usual, from M&A, from other areas that have suspended a little bit their work, towards these new problems that clients have. And we feel that it's very important to be very close to clients, using, of course, now technology, and we are already preparing ourselves for the future also as a firm.
Thank you very much. Let's move now to Switzerland, Ms. von Wünschen.
Yes, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. So in Switzerland, the situation is not so different. Switzerland has also put in place the emergency state. That was the case on March 19th. And there are two sets of measures being put in place, some protection measures on the population, and then of course economic support measures. So regarding the measures to protect the population, we are looking at similar measures as in our neighboring countries. So the schools have been closed, universities also. The borders are closed. Only you can pass only if you fill out some very specific conditions, but Switzerland has not ordered a lockdown in the proper sense. So we are not obliged to stay at home. We are encouraged to do so. The government says, please do not go out unless you have 5 reasons to do so, but we are not legally under a lockdown. So are we still able to freely move around if we want to? We are not entitled, however, to meet with more than 5 people at a time, so maximum groups of 5 people. Only businesses which have a direct one-to-one contact have been closed, meaning hair salons, everything that is aesthetic, all the shops which are not essential to daily life. So these shops have been closed, but we have not closed down yet industries. So for example, everything that is construction work is still going on. And the canton have a certain leeway to close a certain industry branch under very restrictive conditions. So except for restaurants and very specific categories of businesses, industry sectors have not yet been affected as a whole. Regarding the courts have been put on court holiday. We have Easter coming up in a few days. And so they put just a court holiday that would have been applied during Easter holiday 2 weeks earlier. So all courts are on holiday, which means that they're only dealing with urgent matters and they are not holding any court hearings. Apart from that, that's for the protection measures side, most of it. Then on the economic support measures, the federal government has put in place a series of quite extraordinary supporting measures. They have mobilized 40 billion Swiss francs to support the economy on a federal level. And that includes compensation for short work. If you have to reduce the working percentage of your employees, you can ask for compensation as employer for that. If you're independent or if you fill certain categories, you can ask for a compensation for loss of earning. You can also ask for credits. That's actually quite extraordinary. As a company, if you need liquidities, you can just go to the bank and you can get up to 10% of your annual revenue as a credit without any documents or whatever. You just ask for it and you get it. So this is quite extraordinary. Other measures include also on the, so let me just be specific on that one. It's 10% of the sales or maximum of 20 million Swiss francs that you can get without the bank asking any questions. Then there is also support on the tax measures. So normally, as of today, you would have to pay delay interest on the taxes for 2019. All these delay interests are waived. Same applies to all social insurance payments that would be due. No delay interest apply until the end of the year. And then cantons can take some further measures. There is also standstill in the debt enforcement, meaning that if claims are not being paid, you cannot initiate debt enforcement procedures at this time. And you can also not move forward on any bankruptcy proceedings at this time. So all this has been put in standstill mode until after the Easter holiday and might be prolonged afterwards. So this is for the overview of the situation. Now, from a lawyer perspective, what is the work that we are seeing at the moment? Mostly until now, it has been labor law related, companies having to cut down the workforce and needing to file for short-time work compensation. That was the major thing that we've been dealing with, actually. Then also now companies applying for these credits with the banks. We are also now starting to see the first contractual disputes, but there's a lot of negotiations going on between the government and also associations. For example, in the tenancies, it's not clear whether as a tenant of a restaurant you have to pay the tenancy fee or not. Legally, it's not clear, so that a lot of negotiations going on government level to find industry-specific solution between the various stakeholders. But there's certainly a beginning of contractual disputes arising. And I believe if we look forward, this will only exacerbate. There will be a lot of contract disputes going on which will not have been resolved. That will end up on an international level before arbitration courts, on a local level with the courts. And I'm a dispute resolution lawyer. I think this is really the time for mediation. And my call is for the companies to encourage mediation because the legal situation is not clear. In Switzerland, under Swiss law, we don't have a concept of force majeure as such. We have the concept of impossibility, but which does not apply because this only applies if it's a definite, so not a temporary impossibility. And then we have the concept of clausula rebus sextantibus, which you can apply, but which simply means that you would have to renegotiate the contract. Unless you have a specific force majeure clause in your contract, then under Swiss law, you will be torn between these two options, impossibility, which does not apply, and then you're left with the clausula rebus sextantibus, which means you need to renegotiate. So I think mediation is really the right platform for all these disputes to go to. And the other work that we expect, as mentioned already, M&A projects, not that much. I think those are all being put on freeze right now, and we'll be looking more at restructurations and unfortunately also bankruptcy proceedings.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move now to Latin America. How is the situation in Brazil, Mr. Colombo? I can't see Mr. Colombo, so I will move to Ecuador. Mr. Bustamante.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, with the presentation from my colleagues has been pretty much a good summary for Ecuador. I speak for Ecuador, but I believe that Latin America has been trying to anticipate the situation from the previous experiences, starting in China to Europe, with lots of fear, understanding that our healthcare systems are, in general terms, not as strong and robust as the European healthcare system. And therefore, the measures, at least in Ecuador, it's hard to tell if the measures were implemented timely, if they were strong enough from the beginning in order to anticipate and try to mitigate the expansion of this virus. However, on March 16th, the emergency state was declared, and basically the country has been in a lockdown for since March 16, on an attempt to reduce the critical cases on a country that on a normal state of activities doesn't dispose the sufficient ICU beds necessary for the critical cases treatment. So on that regard, and understanding that the Ecuadorian market was already depressed before the measures taken, specifically due to the decrease on the oil price. Even before the state of emergency declaration, Ecuador had already taken some severe economical and tax measures in order to be able to surpass the foreseen economical crisis, and then we were hit with this major lockdown that has definitely stressed the system to a point that I don't think, at least in our lifetime, we had experienced in Ecuador. You had asked what are the main legal or political measures taken to try and overcome this situation, and I would say that we are currently living on a daily basis, trying to enact measures that help reduce the impact. I'm gonna say that probably from what I've heard on the European colleagues, in Europe, they are living a couple weeks ahead of what we're experiencing in Latin America. But I think that the measures that the Latin American region, some or most of the countries are taking are perhaps a little bit more severe from the start to try and reduce the impact. However, on the first instance, we are sensing lots of problems in addressing the labor or the employee-employment relationship. Ecuador has a labor code that has been modified many times, but basically the basis of this code looks back to 50 years. And despite having a good legal base, we are seeing that the legal regulation is being challenged severely. We are having to challenge the status quo laboral regulation in order to be able to accommodate the current needs that most companies and different sectors are facing, with reductions of up to 30% of salaries, with suspensions of the normal activities, modifications, and some industries that are being hit the worst. I'm gonna say that they have taken measures that are not even prescribed in our labor code in order just to be able to save their operations and to avoid having to declare bankruptcy or to dismiss their entire workforce. So that the laboral issue is perhaps the worst, but Ecuador is now facing a generalized lockdown with certain additional measures for certain states that have shown to be hit the worst. And yeah, basically, I sum up to the words of my colleague saying that the judicial system is suspended for now. The administrative system is suspended. The public banking and the private banking have conceded more flexible restructuring of obligations. The same with with mediation or arbitration measures. Those have been suspended as well. All the basically the entire system is in a lockdown right now, and a shutdown until further notice. For now, we are in lockdown until April 5th.
Okay, thank you very much. I go to Uruguay, so Miss Servieri.
Yes, the situation in Uruguay is almost the same than in the rest of the countries. So I trying to respect my 2 minutes, I will be brief. I think that this problem, we have 2 points of view. One is the point of view from the government measures that in the case of Uruguay, they took, in my opinion, good measures, similar than in most of the countries that the speaker already talked. And part of these measures are, of course, trying to help the people to keep their jobs. This is from the point of view of the government measures. In the point of view of the firm, and based on this situation, I think that everything is every day, as Gregorio was telling, every day is changing. So you take a decision today and you have to change it tomorrow. We in Latin America, we were expecting that the situation in the north get better. And in this situation, okay, well, now we are in a worse situation, but in the north are better. So they are going to start with the work and we are going to receive it. However, based on the news and what all the speakers are saying, the situation is not ready, it's not finished yet. So in the point of view of the firm, what we are trying to do day by day, because every day the situation is changing, is solidarity, and we are trying to keep all our team as much as we can. You know that in our particular case, we are almost more than 100 people, 100 families. So the idea is trying to support them as much as we can, even knowing that the work is it's reduced incredible. Yesterday, we start receiving the emails from US, for example, last week from Europe, and now probably from Latin America. We need to work harder than ever, and we need to try to find new work, a different work. For example, in our firm now, we are developing a lot of work online, that because it's something different that we need to do. And waiting and trying to do as much as we can, working hard, trying to keep our people, because you know that this is a teamwork, and we need to care our team. And hoping that the situation start to revert in the rest of the countries. Now we are start working with Asia again, and we hope that all this situation solve as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for anticipating a topic that we will be discussing soon after this first round, which is the topic of people at law firms, such as organizations in general. Let's continue traveling around the world. Let's go now to Venezuela, Mr. Esteban.
Yes, how are you? Thank you for this invitation, Ilaria. Thank you, Latin American lawyer and Iberian lawyers. So in Venezuela, I agree with our colleague Juan Felipe Bustamante when he said that American countries anticipate this pandemic. Venezuela is almost the same case. We anticipate this situation in relation with the announcement that the government did 2 weeks ago when he closed down the country. He took some measures where he suspends the loan payments from creditors and interest, from capital and interest. He renewed the inamobility workforce, and in this case you cannot finish any work relation during the next 6 months. He suspends the possibility of cut of services like water, energy, phone, or internet, and he promised some measures of support measures for companies, basically middle or small companies. This situation in Venezuela, when we said that the government anticipates, it's because the government knows that the health system is really damaged at this time in our country. We have like more or less 104 public hospitals. In these hospitals, the situation is really poor. At this time, the 45% of the beds of this hospital are not operated. They're not working at all. And the 75% of these hospitals are without public services. They're without water and electricity as well. So I think that that's the way this government anticipate this situation, knowing that the services are really poor. So we need to prevent any pandemic in Venezuela. So the work that we're having at this time, and of the legal work that we're receiving from our clients, are in the main areas, or the labor law, the contract disputes as well between parties relating at any type of contracts and lease, or any good supplies, or any types, and taxes consultancies as well, because the government didn't take any tax measures at this time. So we have to comply with some with tax forms and payments as well.
Thank you very much. Let's go now to Guatemala, Mr. Ibargüen.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning and good evening to all people listening. Guatemala has a new president, and he's a doctor. Although we have 36 cases and 1 death already, our president did take early action. We had a calamity decree, similar to a state of emergency decree from the president and ratified by Congress since February 24. This was extended just a few days ago for another month. And basically, this was initially done in order to permit the government to contract more rapidly in order to have our medical system and hospitals ready for the pandemic. Our situation in terms of health is similar to other countries in Latin America, probably even with less equipment. And this is similar with other countries in Central America. So the focus of our government has been basically creating the hospital capacity, the temporary hospital capacity to accommodate the expected complicated cases of COVID-19. As regards to activities, given that we are starting, I think we are far behind the other countries in this conference. I think that our president took actions early on. Basically, 2 weeks ago, the limitations of activities were imposed. We began as a law firm working from home, and fortunately we were ready for that. But this basically created a different industries which could not work, some that could work under limited circumstances, etc. And then about a week and a day ago, a curfew was imposed from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. And you can still go out in the street with obviously limitations on concentration, etc., and go to the supermarket, but the restrictions have been particularly hard on certain aspects of the economy that are really left with situations in which the legislation that was mentioned by the other colleagues from Latin America is not there. I wish we had something similar to what was mentioned by Clarice in Switzerland. We have labor laws that simply cannot, and no social security systems in Central America, probably excepting Costa Rica, but the rest of our countries have labor laws that basically make it legally impossible to suspend workers without having the company's obligation to pay. So this is really extremely difficult, as you can imagine, and we have been trying to help our clients make decisions that are based on, frankly, practical aspects that are based on a liquidity situation. So we are getting the economic aspect of the COVID virus here much before, and this is impacting us very, very rapidly, and we are hoping that some balance in these positions will be reached, and that also proposed changes in law are enacted by the Congress in the very near future, because it's simply difficult to manage this situation right now for companies which are exempted from the no work limitation. One thing I want to point out very quickly is a president is very well intended and has taken some dispositions that are legally published, and then when the legal community gets to read it, you try to interpret them, and you basically read that certain activities are prohibited. Then the president goes on a public appearance and reinterprets the legal disposition. So you have like the legal uncertainty, and you're basically interpreting the law based on the press conference the president is making. And I think this was mentioned is happening also in Spain. So that's also a challenge. Our courts are closed except for the most basic criminal situations that need to be resolved. Public registries are closed except for the property registry. The commercial registry is trying to adapt some technical aspects in order to work online. And then I guess just not to overtake the time, the measures here basically the lockdown from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. are on effect until the 12th of April, basically after Easter. But the main concern that we see here is the economical impact in a country which is poor and a country that needs that the priority of most of the population is basically having enough to earn in a day in order to have something to eat. And I am doubtful that some kind of relief will be present in the near future. That's unfortunately our situation here in Guatemala.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to Chile, Mr. McKenna.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this interesting panel. First of all, let me tell you that according to what is going on in Chile, our government initial measures are showing encouraging results. And this is because our government started preparing very early on in January. We were all surprised when we knew that the government started, for instance, buying medical equipment as soon as the outbreak of the coronavirus was declared in China. So that makes us very well prepared from a hospital capacity to confront this crisis. A sequence of different preventive measures have been taken prior to most countries when compared by days since the first case or number of infected people when they were implemented. This has been very, very effective in the way that we have been able to not to flatten the curve, but at least not to have an exponential increase in number of cases. And as a result of that, right now we have 2,700 cases of infected people, 290 new cases only in the last day, and only 12 people have unfortunately passed away. This is because we have a very high number of tests available. Over 5,000 tests are made every year, which in comparison to other countries has been very, very good. This has, as a result, a more credible number of people infected when compared to other countries. And the result of that is that we have a very high number of infected people, but that's because we're very early on detecting those cases, and we've managed to control the rates of diseased people. This can be, of course, contrasted with what is going in the economic front. Our stock exchange has been going up the last 4 or 5 days. The government approval rates are going up also from a very historical low in the last few days. We have taken preventive measures, but on a gradual way. From the day in which we started suspending events for over 500 people on March 13. We suspended classes on March 15, and then we closed borders on March 18, a state of catastrophe also on the same date. And then we only went into quarantine in very isolated areas like Easter Island on March 19, and then in only 7 municipalities of Santiago on March 26. The quarantine or lockdown has not been total in Chile, has been only for certain areas where the most cases are concentrated, like where I live. We have a high concentration of cases, so the lockdown has been since last Friday. We also have a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in all the national territory. So these measures are really giving or producing good effects. Now, the government, the president announced last week the biggest and most impressive economic package or economic measures in our history, throwing to the streets billions of dollars in subsidies to the most affected people, subsidies to small businesses, the reinforcement of certain activities, so on and so forth. So we are having a very strong reaction from the government, from Congress, in the speed in which laws have been passed and approved. For example, all critical services have been maintained. All critical activities are maintained with lots of preventive measures, of course. And in general terms, due to the high digitalization of our economy, of our government and businesses, many businesses and services have been kept working at a normal speed. In our case, we are a firm that has 600 employees, and all of our employees are working remotely right now, and everything is working perfectly well. We're providing services to our client as normal in the past. So those are the good news. We have encouraging results, as I said at the beginning, from the general measures that have been taken. Now, in terms of services, of course, as many of my colleagues have said before me, all of the questions from our clients have concentrated around the force majeure clauses and force majeure interpretation of several different contracts. Unfortunately, it's not so easy to apply, or fortunately maybe, the force majeure clause when you have different situations in different places of the country. Fortunately, we have a very long and narrow country that can be sectioned and establish sanitary cordons or barriers. So we have areas where nothing is going on and everything is working as normal, and we have other areas with a full lockdown. So in that respect, the interpretation and application of force majeure clauses, for instance, is on a very, very case-to-case basis. And of course, applying the Chilean laws, you need to fulfill certain requisites like the unpredictability or irresistibility of the event that you're claiming to be force majeure. On the other front, we are receiving lots of queries from our clients in the labor front regarding suspension of services. The government has one of the economic measures issued is supporting employees that will not receive salaries during the suspension period, opening the possibility for people that has been suspended its work relationship due to force majeure or lockdown to claim their salaries at the based on the unemployment insurance that every employee has in this country. Also, the pension funds have been instructed to release some part of the pension funds, so on and so forth. So I think that as someone was saying at the beginning of this discussion, of this panel, we are facing unique times. We are realizing that the way in which we were doing business prior to this crisis probably are going to change dramatically. We are realizing that we don't need many things, but that we could work more cooperatively, and that we could be working in a more inclusive way, in a more proactive and collaborative way. So I am very optimistic of the results of this. Of course, it's going to have its toll in terms of economic effects. We hope that these effects will not be as strong as some people are saying, and that we will be able to leave this crisis very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Peru, Mr. Viacava.
Thank you, Laria. Hello to everyone. So we are now learning and hearing new terms like social distancing and flattening the curve. And that has translated in measures that have taken our governments in the last 2 months, a month or 15 days. In Peru, March 15, the government declared national emergency. So we declared a 15-day lockdown that was extended for an additional 15 days that will end on April 12. And basically, civil rights, civil liberties were restricted by this declaration of national emergency, including the liberty to move around, the liberty to assembly, the liberty to the availability of residence, and the right to have some security measures. Basically, the government stated that the country will continue operating, but only on essential activities. And those essential activities were more or less healthcare, food, bank, telecom, public health, and public utilities. So in certain way, what the government was trying to do is, of course, following the recommendations of the World Health Organization in order to flatten the curve, to reduce the amount of people that get the virus. So at this point, almost 16 days have passed. We have also curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. It was extended from 6 a.m. from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's clear that it has taken a toll on the country, on the economy, and the government needed to enact certain measures in order to provide liquidity to the economy. What has been the target? Basically, you have to take into consideration that Peru is a informal economy. The formal economy probably is half the country, but there is another 50% that works on a day-to-day basis, and they operate in order to the sales that they produce in a day in order to eat. So these people are the ones that are receiving economic compensation from the government. They're putting together a package for them to receive an amount of money. The problem is that this amount of money represented that people have to go to banks, and the social distancing was not working because you have lines of enormous amount of people in order to receive this compensation. So the government has been putting these things, these measures, but again, learning from the mistakes in order to move forward. Tax-wise, extensions in order to pay the income tax, the VAT, labor, people are, that 50% that is in the labor market, they have the right to get the pension fund that is intangible, the insurance to also whenever you are fired. But as in many other countries, is a very rigid type of labor law. Nonetheless, force majeure has also taken its impact in labor law, in which many companies are using force majeure in order to suspend the labor relationship. That's unprecedented for a country as Peru that have a very rigid type of labor law. But that's the case now. You've seen companies sending 30% of the workforce on a suspension of the labor agreement. In the case of banking, the government has given the possibility to the banks to try to reschedule the credit facilities of all types from those clients that the banks have. But until now, this is measures that are focused on the day-to-day workers in the small companies, what we call the MIPES, that is the very small companies to small companies, or companies that their annual revenue or sales are of 7 million. So what happened to the big companies? And that's something that the country is still waiting, because at the end of the day, in order to the country to continue to operate in the following week and a half, that we will continue to have this lockdown, this economy working in a 95% lockdown is that the government need to issue a package, and the good thing is that Peru at this time, as not as what happened in 2008, but now we have the flexibility. The government, Peru, has the highest amount of reserves that can be used in order to allow companies to get credit for capital lines, in order to working lines that will be backed by the central bank. So right now you have the central bank and the Ministry of Economy working in this package, and these will represent a good thing for the market, because whenever this medium to big size company will get this, they're talking about between $2 to $5 million that companies can get with the backing of the central bank. This will definitely allow companies to start move forward. Right now, most of the advice we're getting from our clients are basically labor, are basically contractual concessions. You have companies that have a concession agreements that, for example, all the transportation has been reduced to 50%. So what happened to those, the metro company, the bus operators, what happened to the hydro companies? They are trying to use the force majeure clause. But as Chile said, this is on a case-by-case basis. You need to interpret what the law states in the civil code in order to use this force majeure article in your contract or in the civil code. So basically, this is a new reality. The truth is that for us as a law firm, we were prepared. We were expecting something like this to happen. We knew that there was going to come a lockdown. We had the platform, we have the infrastructure, and last 2 months we bought 100 laptops that were distributed to our lawyers, and everyone are totally connected and working remotely from their homes. And we are probably 150 families, depending on people working in the firm, and any measure that we take, because law firms are cash flows. So any measures that we take will have a toll in our people. So what we are doing is trying to get us closer to our clients. We know there are industries that are being hit harder, retail, airlines, restaurants, because our lockdown is complete. They don't even have delivery. So only the essential business have their way of logistics. If you don't fall under the umbrella of essential, you can have your assets in customs in the port, and you cannot move it from the warehouse of the port in order to get it into the port. And you can imagine the amount of money you're losing there. So this is unprecedented times, but for us in Peru, the good things is that for the first time, we have a government with the liquidity and the capacity to inject money into the economy, so we can start moving forward and starting to see the light. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's finish the round of the word with Brazil. Mr. Colombo. Okay, since it's impossible to hear from Mr. Colombo, let's move on to the other aspect that I pointed out at the beginning. I'm referring to the change that coronavirus has caused inside law firms in terms of management. Remote work is probably the response that most of you activated in the first place. Some of you also already told us about this. I would like to know, how are you coping internally with this pandemic, and if you were technologically ready for this, but this time for this round of questions, I will ask you to reply just in 1 minute. Let's start again from Europe. Gregorio Consoli, Italy.
Yes, thank you. I will really just take 1 minute. I think we were, in our experience, we were lucky, to be honest. We have just implemented in the last part of 2019, and the initial part, January, was the official kickoff. The entire migration of our platform on Microsoft Teams. So we had all the Surface system for all the lawyers, and we had also mobile device for all the employees, so personal assistants, administration, and so on. So to be honest, we were just lucky. We were struggling to have all the people using Teams and the new instruments, and suddenly we all discovered that they were really useful and that they were really easy to use them. Just to give you a numbers, suddenly in March, we had something like 1,600 virtual meetings through the platform. We had something like 6,000 one-to-one calls through Teams, 70,000 messages in the chat. And just during the March 26th, we had 168 meetings and 627 calls in the system. So reality is that suddenly we discovered that technology is useful. Not that it was not the same before, but reality is that you just start using and to exploit all the possibilities that you have when you really need them. So I think that was our immediate answer. The other immediate answer was try to concentrate ourselves on what we can really give in this moment to the client. By definition, some of us are really involved in emergency assistance to clients, especially in finance sector, labor sector, the tax and others. But by definition, there are other parts of the firms like M&A, for instance, or others that are less involved in day-to-day assistance. So what we are trying to do is just to use our knowledge just to prepare documents, not just, let's say, generic alert, but also some putting some thoughts on that for our clients. And we have created, let's say, a knowledge management section in our website that is available for our clients in order to give them what we can give today. I think that are the two mainstream of our activities that can characterize. I think, first of all, technology. We really switched really fast on that. And the other one is trying to communicate with our clients only with contents. We don't think this is the moment just to tell people what you're doing and as good as you are, but just trying to give what we know.
Thank you very much. Spain, Mr. Gomez.
Yes, more or less the same as in Italy. I mean, we were prepared. All our people have laptop, have a mobile phone. For all those that didn't have when the pandemic started, we acquired them for them. Everybody is working remotely. Work is perfect. I mean, we have access to all the systems, all the documents, all the files, the application, the resources, so we can work from home as if we were at the office. So that's this has been a very good test for this working from home tendency that we are seeing in the world. So that's very interesting. And as Gregorio was saying, I mean, we at the M&A department are not having so much work as in the labor department or finance department or tax department. So what we are doing is trying to organize our resources, organize our lawyers, put in lawyers from different teams helping, supporting to other teams. We are also trying to be very reactive to any new pieces of legislation that are being enacted every day. And we are trying to be useful for clients, preparing like alerts or notes, memos, covering those matters that could be interesting for the clients. This is what we are doing now.
Thank you very much. Portugal, Mr. Marreiros Moreira.
Well, on our side, I would say that you know, we've been an innovation technology driven firm in the last years. So I think that we were quite prepared for this, and that's why we were able to react very fast, and within a few days we had all the teams working from home. In fact, we've been working remotely for several reasons, because as I mentioned, we have local presence in 13 jurisdictions, so a lot of us, we travel a lot, and we are very used to work remotely from any country where we are. So I think that was already business as usual for many of us. Also, what we've been doing is we've been taking advantage of several of the tools we have, like webcasts, webinars, podcasts. We've been communicating with clients and even with the teams using some of these tools. We have also introduced virtual parties, virtual drinks, also lunches with clients. We've been having what I call morning daily wake-up meetings with the teams every morning at 9:30, so that everyone takes their pajamas out and starts working on time already with their hair properly addressed. And also we see that it's also important to keep a very close relationship with our clients, and so we are using also technology as a way to to keep a very close relationship with clients on a daily basis. Besides that, we are also using our CRM and our knowledge management tools, to work properly from home, having access to the books, to the publications that we need on a daily basis to prepare our work. So I would say that people are clearly experiencing, a lot of efficiency from working from home. We don't see that this is causing too much inefficiency on the teams. In fact, for meetings, I would say we are much more efficient than when many times we are doing meetings personally, even if we like each other very much and we would like to come again to the office and be with each other and with clients personally, because that's not replaceable.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Switzerland, Ms. Wunschein.
I can actually mirror just what the colleague Tiago said in Portugal. Our firm is more or less in the same situation. We were able to switch very smoothly to the home office mode thanks to our IT system. I think in every crisis there's an opportunity, and myself, I also have my 2 kids at home. They're 3 and 4, so I will not say that I work as efficiently as I do when I'm in the office. I do not. But this is also an opportunity to rethink the way you work. I've been delegating much more. I've been in touch with the young lawyers who are at home much more, because I can find time for 5 minutes, 10 minutes phone call, whereas working an hour quietly on a document is more challenging at this time. So it really also helps just rethink the way you personally work. Calling a lot the clients. I think a lot is going on now online. There's this whole online hype, which is good. I think there was a need for the legal industry to move more towards online too, definitely. And this is the opportunity here. But also, you can see that also with the young generation, especially in China, for example, where people just don't talk anymore. It's all via chat platforms, and there's something between us. So I'm also taking this opportunity to play a bit more old school and call up my clients on a traditional phone call, not necessarily on a web meeting platform, and just see how they're doing. But clearly, I'm in this challenging time. The works now, it's going down for some work, and I expect it's going to go up again, but you don't know, and you need to be just prepared and adapt to whatever is coming.
Okay, thank you very much. In the meantime, if someone in the audience has questions, please write them clicking on the Q&A icon, because at the end of this last round, indeed, I will pick some questions for our speakers. So don't be shy, and please start the question by indicating to whom that question is. Let's move on with Latam, Ecuador, Mr. Bustamante.
Thank you. Yeah, but I pretty much share the current situation of our firm with the European technology. The technologies there, we are also using as one of the main tools the Microsoft Teams app, which is really helpful for all the activities and keeping up with the team. One thought that came to mind, and something that we have been utilizing as a conceptual scheme, is the evolution of theory of Charles Darwin, which I think that really applies for not only for us law firms, but in general terms for what we are living nowadays. And I don't think most of us thought that what we're living today was even possible. And basically I summarize it in 2 points. One is that the natural selection and the survival of the fittest. So we are definitely experiencing, now we're talking about how we are adapting to working from home, which definitely brings many challenges, but also shows us that it's possible. So those firms that are able to cope with the new challenge, those firms that are able to make their team capable of being as productive, if not more, and also learning, because at least in our case, we have been able to realize which assets, which human assets are the most important, and perhaps this situation has brought to light some inefficiencies or efficiencies that our structure had. And the point 2 is what I already mentioned, is adaptation capacity. So therefore, I think that in addition to what the colleagues have said regarding the technology, the teamwork, and being able to assist clients from the current situation that we're living, I think that structures that are or law firms that had good structures I think those structures will be strengthened from this process. I think those structures are going to rise even higher than before. And of course, those firms that perhaps didn't plan ahead or that didn't implement the necessary tools to be able to cope with this, unfortunately, just like in every other industry, will perhaps disappear or become less relevant in the market. So I encourage you all to take a look at that theory from Charles Darwin that dates back to the 1800s, which is still present nowadays.
Thank you very much. Uruguay, Miss Servieri.
We're technologically prepared. We have offices in Uruguay, in Paraguay, and Bolivia. So we know how to work from home in order to be connected with all the offices. So we were doing a lot of work, remote work. Of course, not from home, from the offices, but technically we were prepared. Some things that we are doing that I think Clarice or someone talked about this is trying to keep a schedule or an agenda. I think Tiago talked, I don't remember. And what we are doing is we have like a timetable. Every day in the morning we have this kind of things. At 12 p.m. we always at 12 we have our partners meeting. At 3 p.m. we have an accountant meeting, and normally what we are and another things that we are doing, and I think is going well, is we are doing webinars between all the members of the firm. We discuss a case that we handle in the office, and it's something that we never have time to do it. So we are doing now, and we are also inviting some clients to attend the webinar and discuss with us about the article or about the case, and it's going well, and now we are all in communication, and I think that we never imagined to say that I hope to be in the office again. So we are missing the office, we are missing the people, and all together.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Venezuela, Mr. Esteban.
Yes. So technological speaking, we were fully connected. We have to take in consideration that we were suffering different lockdowns for many and different reasons. For example, for public manifestations or electricity problems in Venezuela. So from these reasons, we have learned and we were really prepared. So we are fully we have fully access for our files and our systems through the web, and we're doing many connections and video conference with the client and with the team. In relation with the client support, we are working together with our clients. We're preparing bulletins and newsletters that we're sending frequently to our clients, and we're doing some follow-ups with the clients to see if there have been any doubts or any new issues related with the matters or the news that we're spreading. So at this time, we're ready to work.
Thank you very much. Guatemala, Mr. Ibargüen.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. Thank you very much. Well, we were prepared, fortunately, for this work from home situation. Our team has responded really great. We had some situations we anticipated with people that probably didn't have laptops available for working from home, so we were able to purchase in time and receive in time these laptops, which we have made available to people from accounting and other administrative areas which are also working from home right now. So basically the adaptation to this new paradigm of working from home is really viable. I think for lawyers in particular is really viable. Maybe some of us need to see the laws in print, but everything is digitalized anyhow, and we have a document system that basically has everything scanned, so, and this can be accessed by anyone from home. So from that point of view, we are working just fine. We're really amazed with the response of our team has been excellent, and I think that basically is due to the fact that we had considered certain communication aspects really important. I hear some of my colleagues also took some of these measures, but having regular contacts through Zoom or other Hangouts or other mechanisms for particularly video conferencing. We have weekly video conference with all the office. We are 75 people, so it's possible if everyone mutes, of course, but it's possible to have weekly meetings, and we're having those. And also we divided amongst the partners in groups of between 9 and 10 people, all of the rest of the team, and we have specific groups which are more concerned about how they're doing at home, how they're coping with the resources they have, how are they managing personally with habits. Getting the habit of working from home is really different. So you have to do basically what you do when you go to work, but stay at home. We even discussed those things, and it's been very useful. And of course, to have the more in-person contacts, that's why we decided to divide amongst the people. Of course, with regards to attending to clients' matters, basically video conferencing is very useful. You can have all sorts of meetings anytime. And probably one reflection you get is you really don't need to meet face to face. It's nice, and we all miss it given we are under lockdown circumstances, but it's really not necessary and probably inefficient. So you are getting those reflections very clearly. Basically, other thing that we're concerned of, and we feel from some of our people is, some areas like the labor law, the tax law, and the contracts, etc., with force majeure issues, they're getting a lot of work. And there's other areas, for example, litigation, which we have a very strong practice, which is probably basically helping probably interpret force majeure clauses, but they're basically doing less work. So we're trying to develop mechanisms of making, having all the team work on different areas, particularly those that are not as busy right now. So in general, I think firms are institutions that can easily adapt to working from home, and we've been able to do it without any problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Just 30 seconds, Chile, Mr. McKenna, so that later on we can start with the Q&A.
Sure. Well, at the firm we have, fortunately enough, we had all the systems working. It took us a couple of days to adjust, having all the people working from home, using the same service, etc. But it works pretty well, and it's working very well. We also implemented an internal site so that our people can access our bulletins, internal bulletins that we are distributing on, for example, how to confront the uncertainty of these isolation periods, ideas and activities to do with the kids, how to work from home in an effective manner, etc., etc. So we are supporting our people very much, communications, bulletins, and throughout this specific web page. And also for our clients, we have implemented a microsite that I already sent to everybody on the panel, the access link, where we basically provide summaries of all the measures that have been implemented by the government and the new laws have been passed.
Okay, thank you very much.
30 seconds.
Peru, 30 seconds, Mr. Viacava.
Okay, 30 seconds. So for us, it was also, the transition was easy because Lima is a 10 million person habitant. It's a big city, so we implemented couple of years ago, remote work, flex time, and we hired the Office 365. The Teams was already put in place. We now also use Zoom. So all, including billing, knowledge management, all our centralized documentation platform was already available. So it was not difficult to put on 100% of our labor force in a remote mode. So again, we were lucky to implement all these measures a year ago that has provided us this flexibility in order to perform our work from our homes.
Thank you very much. Let's try again with Brazil, because we should have Mr. Colombo online right now, so he might answer to this question and also to the first one if he wants. Mr. Colombo, can you hear me?
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for speaking with me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thanks to the Iberian lawyer, the Latin American lawyer, and related publications. Thanks to my colleagues. Very nice to hear from all of you, and it's a wonderful initiative to share the different views from around the globe. Going to the first question, I think that's mentioned by many of my colleagues, it's an unprecedented crisis, which in Brazil is demanding and creating different responses. I think we are trying to deal with the humanitarian sanitary crisis and making sure that the second wave of the economic crisis is not bigger than the first one. And on the top of that, there's some political tension, as you might have seen, between our president and many of the state governors who have different views on how to address the problem. But mainly what is transpiring today is that Brazil is following very closely the indications and suggestions of the WHO. And as a consequence, we are entering the third week of social distancing. It's not a strict lockdown in which people cannot move. It's a social distancing program where people are encouraged to stay home where and when they can. basically only essential services are open, and by essential it means the logistic chain and supply chain, mainly for food and drugs for the use and obviously hospitals. Everything else is pretty much on hold. The business activities have, as a consequence, slowed down significantly. By operation of the crisis, the federal government stepping up in a bunch of different directions. It opened, all summed up, roughly 800 billion reais in credit facilities for different constituencies. This is roughly 150 billion US, going to companies, to individuals, particularly to people that are very dependent on what they call informal type of work, which includes taxi drivers and people who do not have a formal employment arrangement, and as a consequence, if they are not allowed to work, they simply do not have any income. And there's a lot of programs trying to tackle with this. And on the corporate side, clients are very keen to, as I heard from the other participants, are very keen to understand the implications of these new normal into labor, tax, and contracts, mainly. On labor sphere, there's a lot of emergency laws that are being passed that allows companies to rearrange employment contracts to reduce either the hours of work, provide vacations or remunerated outs, and that's one side of the spectrum. The other one, on the tax side, there is some programs for the deferment of taxes, but also there's a lot of litigation of companies trying to defer taxes based on old laws that were not passed to this situation specifically, but it's been used for that now. And on contracts, a variety of different questions, ranging from force majeure, as it was debated by many, whether substantiables, if the contracts have to be complied with, or if they can be revised. And we are encouraging clients to the extent possible, as I think that was mentioned by Sweden, to use mediation as much as possible to try to come up with balanced solutions. This is a crisis that will go away eventually. We hope sooner rather than later. But it's not a problem of debt, essentially, for parties. It's a problem of revenue. It's a world collapse where demand and supply basically went all down at the same time. So you don't have the normal cycle of the crisis in this pattern, and people need to achieve a certain minimum balance to continue keeping operations. So basically, that's where we are gravitating today. As we speak, there is another bill of law that will affect different areas of private law, including contracts, public traded companies, exchange contracts, a bunch of different topics that are working their way into legislation or emergency legislation as we speak. Going to the second question, as I mentioned, we are in São Paulo at least, going to our third week into this social system program, if you will. The forum has roughly 1,000 collaborators. all working remotely today. We were able to turn the key relatively easy. We had a program in place that basically replicates the computer of your office, and that's why you're seeing my office in first place, because we cannot change to the camera to my home computer. But the people are home officing for we're entering the third week. It was a challenge at first, as I think to everyone. We have a strong culture of working together in teams in the office, and transporting that reality to the home office was a bit of a challenge at first, but I must confess that it's much better than what we had anticipated. Thanks to our associates and trainees and partners, the firm continues functioning well inside and outside the walls. We kept virtually in virtual space all the meetings of practices, meeting of partners, meeting of lawyers. We have been able to replicate our reality in the firm through these virtual meetings, and it's playing out pretty well. And I trust, as many of our colleagues in the other firms, we also assembled a group of lawyers, partners, and associates to deal with the crisis and to advise clients consistently along the various topics that come as a result of the crisis. So it's a kind of COVID-19 group, which is also working well. So all in all, I think this will leave a change in the way we operate. I don't think we'll ever go away from the physical space and having our space in law firm, because it's more difficult to promote culture from a distance. But it will definitely, I think, we'll definitely incorporate more of the home office culture into our day-to-day practices along the coming years.
Okay, thank you very much. We can move now to the Q&A. There is an interesting question that I would like to ask from Se Barrero to any of the participants. Have you been working on drafting a post-crisis plan? Who wants to reply to these questions? Have you been working on drafting a post-crisis plan? We have Mr. Moreira.
Yes. Yes, well, in fact, I'm also a member of the board, and we've been working both on the management of the crisis, but also we are already working on a day after plan. And so in that respect, what we've been thinking is what type of changes we need to introduce in the way we establish relationships with clients. Also, what type of efficiencies we can take out of the lessons we've been taking from the last couple of weeks. And we are also thinking that after this crisis, well, things will not be as we used to have them in the past. So things will change, and our view is that definitely we will need to contact clients in different ways. We need to be much more efficient. We will need also to understand that probably clients will demand from us more efficiency, and that may also reflect on the type of price proposals we offer to clients. So definitely we are looking, I would say, to different areas, to people, to clients, and even to premises, to the way we structure ourselves, so that probably we will be a more efficient fit organization after the crisis, so that we are prepared for the new normal that will come after the crisis.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from Ana Victoria Cansado. Hi. Good afternoon. I would like to ask if, for example, the measures adopted by some governments, but particularly by the Spanish government, such as the postponement of payments along with the suspension of the employment contracts and the ban on firing workers, are leading companies into future bankruptcy proceedings as their main alternative. That being the case, do you believe it will greatly affect the conclusion of operations in the sector of M&A? This is a question for Spain, definitely for Spain.
Yes, well, I totally agree with what Ana Victoria said. If the companies need to pay salaries, need to pay the rent, need to pay the debt, but they don't have income because their activity has been stopped, and they don't sell products, they don't sell services. Of course, they may face a default situation, a breach of financing agreements that could lead them to a bankruptcy. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, there will be a lot of companies who will not be prepared for the post-crisis scenario, and they will have to shut down their companies. And yes, we will be prepared for this situation, for this bankruptcy wave that will be coming, unfortunately. As for the second question, yes, we also believe that the M&A will suffer a lot after this situation. But it is true that there are some. I mean, there is money in the market because the money was there before the crisis started, and there were, at least in Spain, a lot of transactions moving on. It is true that we all were expecting a kind of slowdown of the economy, not recession, but slowdown of the economy and slowdown of M&A activity. We didn't count on this crisis, but yes, I think that the M&A world will also suffer a little bit after this crisis. But I'm not so pessimistic, and I think we will see some transactions happening in all the world. I think in Spain, Europe, but also Latin America. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We have our last question, but just 20 seconds for reply to these questions. To all, have you considered investing in clients during the crisis by, for example, offering limited free advice to also non-clients, Who wants to answer to this question? 15 seconds. I see Mr. Viacava ready to answer for this. If we can please open.
Pretty
okay.
fast. Basically, in the specific areas, we are now offering, for example, aviation, free advice. We know that they're going through very rough times. Also on the hotel industry and restaurants, free advice for them. And we hope that in the next 3, 4, 5 months, they are receiving a package from the government. They can come back, and of course, this will pay back in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being so quick. Our time is running out, so let me thank again our speakers and the audience for attending this webinar. It has been a real pleasure for me to moderate this interesting discussion, and I hope everybody found this international interchange very fruitful, as I did. Let me just remind you to read our portals to keep posted on legal market news and stay tuned on our new initiatives. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Gracias.
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 Gracias igual.
Gracias.